workshop. So my name is Uwe Richter. I will chair the session, and I will give you a note kind of 5 minutes before the end, that you get to the end. As it's a workshop, I think the discussion will take place in the workshop itself, so we don't necessarily need time at the end. So it's 5 minutes to, so it's 10:25 when I send the warning. So the session will be recorded. So I invite Maria, Vanessa, is it Miguel or Miguel, or both? And Hannah to start their workshop.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I do feel that, yeah, I see Hannah. So I think that we are getting there in terms of people arriving. And welcome everyone. We are very, very excited to share our experience and to talk about the student partners approach. And I will share my screen, because today's presentation will be interactive. So I suggest that you see my screen now, right? Oh, good. Thank you, Michael. That's the partner. That's the partner. He always shows me that I am on track. So with our topic, we try to align it with the traveling and with carriages. Just imagine you're driving educational change. And in this picture, are your students your co-navigators, backseat drivers, or passengers? And we will present it, several of us, we will present it from a variety of perspectives. We have here myself, my name is Maria, I'm Unit of Study Coordinator, and the one who at some particular point got fascinated by Students as Partners approach. We have here Michael Fernando, who is my former student from several years ago. And for several years already, he works with me as a teaching partner, as a tutor. We have here wonderful Hannah, who also was another student of mine several years ago. And recently she graduated from the university and started working as my teaching assistant. And we also have here Georgina, who is a current student of mine, and a current to the extent that in her generosity, she joined us pretty much right after she set the exam for Unit of Study that I have been teaching. Less than an hour passed since this exam. So this is our passionate team, and well, welcome to our presentation. First thing I wanted to ask the audience, considering the marketization of education, most often, how do you experience student voice? As if they are backseat drivers, telling you what to do, but not taking any responsibility for what they are doing, being unhappy all the time with you? Co-navigators who actually help you to go to support other students to develop new approaches, or just passive passengers who sleep somewhere in the corner, even without physically sleeping. Okay, we have 2 people replying. Good, 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 good. Yeah. Backseat drivers, this is, yeah, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And that's a very unfortunate reality for many of us educators. And I understand why many people do not want to redesign their unit of study, because they do not see the point. Why? They are backseat drivers, they do not care. But we think that we do. So I will move to the next slide. You still, you will be able to click on the Next slide as well. Let us agree what are our learning priorities, your learning priorities for today. To understand the controversy of the students as partners approach, to reflect on potential benefits, disadvantages of using students as partners in my teaching, to learn from student voice, to learn from experience of other academics, or to contribute to the academic narrative of students as partners approach. What are your learning priorities? Yay. Marvelous. And Georgina, who is here right now, just remember when we asked this question 2 days ago, and priorities were somewhat different. Okay, we'll talk about that. Okay. Now, let us, before we move into this journey and reflection journey, let us try to understand, what do we hear when you hear students as partners? Academic representation system where students act as speakers for student cohorts, and sometimes on a paid basis. A teaching philosophy to engage a whole class in co-creating learning and teaching experience, or you are simply confused and you have no idea what they're talking about. Marvelous. And I already see some difference here. Some of us hear it more as a philosophy, and some of us hear it as a representation. And the most interesting thing about that is that more often than not, in my experience of last 2 years of conferences, I was always talking about philosophy. But people sometimes who were communicating with me and even co-presenting with me at some point were actually talking about student representation. And actually we're talking about students being paid for being nominated to represent some of the cohorts. And because I had no idea what they're talking about, and it never came to my mind even to ask. That's how confusing this narrative is at the moment. And one of my goals is actually to bring a little bit more clarity, at least people ask this question, what are we talking about, to get on the same page when we are in this conversation. So student representation by design is selective and exclusive. The inclusion of partnership practices in the classroom is an argument for inclusion and equity. This is what we see in the literature, although not too often. Most recent, let us say so, 2023. And our focus, experience that unfolds in the assessed curriculum, the partnership classroom, where whole class co-creation of learning and teaching takes place. We are not talking about student representatives. That more often, in my experience, is related to student societies or some kind of activities in student life, or I don't know, student focus groups. Even student focus groups, some people try to qualify as student as partners. We are talking about whole class experience. So, in a study of students as staff involved in partnership across 11 Australian universities, the idea of being partners was identified as a counter-narrative to students as customers rhetoric. And customers marketization. Remember, so, okay, while you are voting, I see there's some. Yes, thank you very much. Feel free to comment and ask questions in the chat or in this presentation as well. So you can put any reactions to this presentation as well. pretty much the last question like that, to understand where we are currently at. How do you design your whole class experience for your students voice to be heard as a voice of partners to win, customers, clients to satisfy, expecting the evaluation form that lands at some point in their mailboxes, or you're thinking that they are learners and they don't have a say? Nice. What's interesting here, I can see that most of us aim to design our classes for partners to win. I find it fascinating that sometimes people are doing elements of that about increasing student voice, but they actually, because they do not have the wording, they do not have do not know how to frame it better, they are always surprised that in fact they're using student as partners approach. So you might be very well using it without knowing it very much. Okay, and we have customers, clients to satisfy. There's nothing entirely wrong with this approach, and we have absolutely brilliant educators who design their classes for students as customers or clients. One interesting thought here that I would like to share with this person who answered customers, clients. In the literature, I love the discussion, Academy of Management. We actually cannot agree who are our customers or clients. Would that be students themselves, or would that be their parents? And that brings additional complication to this particular perspective. Okay, so now let us move to the fun stuff. Let us take perspectives. And the very first perspective I would love to take would be student perspective. Georgina, would you like to unmute yourself? I will stop sharing for a moment so that people see your beautiful face, and talk to us about your most recent experience. And in the meantime, maybe people will prepare some questions and grill you with some questions, because most likely they have them.
Sure, thank you for the opportunity. So yes, I guess I came across as a partner. So within your classes, Maria, you always made a point of decisions that were made. They were collective decisions. So even what appeared like a small decision, like seating plans or group arrangements, good old mentee came in and there was always a vote and there was a sense of fairness. Yes, we did get the work done. I think with our group of international students being very international, there was a wide variety of student experiences and learning expectations. So in terms of the partnership, you were very proactive in involving those experiences. Yeah, there were a few almost tangents that some students would bring up, but you always managed to bring that back to the main topic. And there was a real joy in the learning. And even in the exam, we were thinking, oh, what did we learn? Well, so much. So I think you just showed us ways of, I guess, innovative ways of learning, that it's so much more than just the academia itself, but the joy of learning.
Thank you very much. Any questions, anyone? Would you have any questions to Georgina as the most recent student who most recently experienced this approach? Maybe you can answer the question that we have in the chat. Students becoming partners on co-designing is a journey. Students don't necessarily start at this point. How do you feel, Georgina? One of the most common questions here is, would this approach be suitable for first-year students?
That's a very good question. Very, very good question. I had a similar question at the last event. I think it was, so I should probably add, I was studying clinical education back in the UK, so I can probably add some of the education pedagogies and whatnot. I think the way that Maria broke down the tasks and certain questions or opportunities as such, all classrooms can have. Some of the group work, for example, there was some flexibility in that. You let the students decide whether or not they'd put themselves into groups or you'd put them into groups. In terms of the tasks, you explained them really well, and there was also an availability of, I guess, flexibility, and you were very responsive to that. So, for example, with there were elevator pitches. You laid out what needed to be done, but based on the class responses, you were able to edit that slightly. So an example was with the timing. We agreed it would be 3 minutes, but then after a class discussion and vote, the decision was made that people wouldn't have points docked if they were over the 3 minutes. So again, that's an example of the students taking some ownership and being partners in the classroom. So yeah, start small.
Yeah, start small. Do you think someone who teaches the first year unit of study, can they try the approach, or it's too early?
So I think it's understanding what the approach is, and understanding what that philosophy means to you. I like the idea of the backseat driver versus the somewhere in the car, maybe in the boot. But I think, yeah, I would say if it's about shared decision making, when you reflect on your teaching, there's a lot of decisions that you may make just because you make them, and you may not necessarily realize why. So maybe just think through those decisions that you make on your students' behalf, and then seek alternatives. And if there is no alternative, it's, I suppose, letting students feel like it's their idea.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm seeing some questions in the chat. I will start answering them, and please feel free to jump in and to add your perspectives, my dear team. Do you see being a student partner as a collective journey alongside your fellow students, or more as an individual journey where you and your peers have different opinions? No, we do co-design. And I wanted to save it for the very last slide, but we started to co-design even right here, right now. If you noticed, we started with prioritizing the learning objectives. Every single one of us, we have a unit of study outline, right? Where learning objectives, they are set in stone, at least for this semester and for several semesters to come. But what you can do, and how often students do read them? How often do you actually read them? Do you remember them very well? But when you are asking during the very first class, you are asking students to rank them, something similar to what we just did, our learning objectives for today, our priorities for today, you see where your class is. And as I said, the conference, the symposium, teaching symposium that I had a privilege to be a part of, with the whole class of my students, 26 students, were co-facilitating, I'm not kidding, this particular session. The priorities were different. The priority number one was about hearing student voice and less the reflective part was much lower on the ranking. So what you do, first of all, that persuades students to actually think what they want to get out of this unit of study, and they start to buy into it. I see Hannah is also nodding. Hannah, you experienced it very recently. How did you feel our 3601 students reacted to that, to being in charge, being in the driver's seat? Did they take the charge?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the beginning, most students were quite surprised because it's definitely a unique technique and a new idea. But then I think somehow it also creates a level of comfort for the students because they're able to become more vulnerable, and especially by putting them on the spot, which most students would usually shy away from, you actually get their natural responses. So then they start to find themselves in situations where they usually aren't really prepared for, or they have to present on their own. If they suffer any tech issues, they have to resolve it on their own, or they have to engage the audience more in their live presentations or respond to questions faster. So I think in a way, this students as partners approach pushes people out of their comfort zone. And then at the same time, they're able to build their confidence and as well as their skills in learning.
And that's the next question, Hannah. Probably you can share your feelings. So it's not just me, passionate me, talking about that. Did you find any students really resisted it? You had this class experience. Anyone like really resisted it?
I don't think from memory anyone was very against or anyone really held back from it. I think when they were confused or they needed more guidance, they definitely flagged the issues early on. And they would say, for example, oh, I'm not really good with this tech issue. Can you support me later? Or I feel like going last, the audience might be less engaged. Can we take a 5-minute break in between? So I think they were raising the issues, but also offering the solutions at the same time. And I think that wouldn't come if we didn't give them the power and also the opportunity to take charge and take initiative in their own projects.
Thank you. Georgina, what was your experience? And after that, I will flip it to Michael from a teaching perspective, from a tutor perspective. Did our class resist, Georgina? These are two different classes and even two different units of study.
I don't think there's resisting. I think because they're all mostly international students, they weren't entirely sure what to expect. And there was some joy in that. We just thought that's maybe just a Sydney way of teaching. So that was quite interesting. I think I enjoyed how you used technology. There were some students in the class that were more sort of extroverted or kind of happy to speak their opinions, whereas other students were slightly more fearful and weren't so keen on speaking in class. However, through the use of Menti, it sort of opened up the dialogue. And then from that, they could maybe see they weren't the only one with those same opinions and then discuss them as a class. So I think it was, there was a sensitivity in the use of technology and also how different students like to learn. But again, I guess as a group of international students, there was a sense of openness and creativity in that respect.
Yeah, that's a very good analysis indeed. That's a slightly different situation when students are coming from many universities just for 5 weeks. That's the study abroad experience. Michael, what's your experience with that?
Sure thing. And also, I just wanted to join in on this journey together with a hearty ER. It's really great to join everyone. So yes, so students as partners from a teacher's perspective as well too. It's really unique. I guess when you're in university or you're trying to step out into the workforce, you're trying to explore how you can make an impact in the journey that you're experiencing with others as well. And I guess to an extent, when you're on that journey, you're trying to figure out why I'm here. And I guess students, especially if when they're starting off, they're trying to figure out, oh, how do we approach certain activities? Or they might look out towards the teacher to kind of like be that leader or be that hero that saves the day. Whereas when you're engaging in a students as partners approach, the teacher becomes that guide, I guess, in like a video game that provides little suggestions, kind of outlines what needs to be approached, and also puts that responsibility back onto the students to be like, hey, you're here at this point in time, you want to learn, and we encourage you to explore it in the best way that you want to. And I guess for the students who are also just starting off and a bit new to the higher education, they can reach out to their fellow peers in class, and also fellow peers in class realizing some students might be holding back. From my experiences, actually go out to them, reach out to them and say, hey, do you need any help in certain areas? So we get to see actual leaders step up, people taking chances, a bit of a risk in how they approach their learning. And for me, I get to see those magical light bulb moments where I see a student, instead of just someone who's just actively sitting in class being idly there, really want to like figure out why they want to be here and how they can also encourage others to figure out why they are here as well too. So that's my kind of experience, just seeing those light bulb moments where people are stepping up.
Thank you, Michael. I'm trying to group questions in our answering. So to build on what Georgina said about more introverted and more extroverted students, what she does not exactly know because she could not see it, but the design of this particular unit of study, it's very heavy on feedback, and students are providing each other with peer feedback every single week on a weekly basis. And this is where that's opportunity for introverts to really shine. Because this is where they speak up, this is where they open up. And because we are bringing it into the spotlight as well, that's to me, that's another component of students as partners. And when I developed that, at the very first, I was playing with it in 2019, before COVID. And now I'm bringing to the questions. Some students complain that student-managed activities such as group teamwork are a waste of time. So in 2019, I saw a big trouble in one student always would be up for answering every single question because participation is a mark, and this particular student would be a high achiever. What do you do? What do you do? You cannot, especially if you perceive student as a customer. Well, the student paid money, the student wants to have a say, and well, yeah, especially if you're new to education, you allow them to speak up and do it all the time. And what do you get as a result? As a result, you get quite unhappy class because at first they feel relieved that someone speaks up all the time. But at the end of the semester, they're very, very unhappy because they learned only from one perspective. And to solve that, I started to use, that's a system developed within the University of Sydney, but once again, it's open and free of charge for all the academics to use, student relationship engagement system. I started to use it to send students targeted feedback on their performance during the workshop. If I noticed that someone was overly active, I tried to reframe it into a leadership skill. And I tried to reframe it, try yourself in the team setting. We are business school, right? It might be different in different contexts. Still, it is my understanding that leadership is needed in every context, whatever you study. And would it be physics or mathematics or arts, it's still hugely important. And students get it. And this is where the first big successes took place, because the students and other students said that about one particular student who was trying to take all the attention at the very beginning, but they said that at the very beginning you were brilliant high achiever yourself. In the middle of the semester, you became a very powerful leader. And what is for the team and for the class, that's how supportive, because you're connecting it to the participation mark. In my class, you're saying, it's not just the knowledge that you are showing matters, it's how you are treating your peers, it's also matters. And that's how I mark. And you included potentially in your marking rubric, as I do. And if they're high achievers, they really, really want to get there, and they start playing with it. And as soon as they see the reaction of their peers, they feel it. And you feel how the atmosphere in the classroom changes entirely, not just within this team setting, in the whole classroom. It changes absolutely everything. And when they present, and trust me, in our settings, sometimes there would be domestic students with the Australian system 8R, they need to be 95, 98 to be able to study in the business school in Bachelor of Commerce, but the international students, they do not have such a requirement. And their English language skills are not exactly as strong as domestic students, right? And you are getting in a trouble when students who are high achievers, who really want to achieve a high mark, and other students who do not have such a good English language command, and you are trying to mix them in a team. But when you're reframing it as a leadership, that works. And it changes everything. And when our new leaders, they realize how they're being perceived, once again, they love it. And when you see their presentations at the end of the semester, many of them, you almost see tears of pride in their eyes when their teams present. They almost cry, I almost cry, and that's just truly wonderful. That's my experience. So that was 2019, right? After that, COVID started, and breakout rooms, and where my additional passion for student feedback is coming from is that you have no idea what is happening in the breakout rooms. You just don't. If they talk to each other, if something happens, and when they provide feedback to each other, you can actually understand who is engaging, who is not, and they support each other in their learning. But now I find it that in face-to-face studies, it works even better, even stronger, and brings even better results. So yeah, I'm very passionate about this particular one. So a little bit went astray. I will return to the very first question first. That is a very serious question. Institutional constraints. Treat them as customers, clients. I agree. And this is very difficult. This is one of the challenges that I also see. University of Sydney put students as partners recently as part of our strategy 2032. But it's easier said than done. And I'm saying it from my experience, where, for example, lots of staff and tutors, and Michael represents tutor perspective here, they're casuals. And they're being paid on hour-to-hour basis. And you do not have a permission to engage your tutors into additional work. Their work is limited. And that's one of the very serious constraints that I see for the approach, because it's very, very difficult to find a partner who will be aligned with yourself in teaching, like Michael and I eventually, and Hannah as well, eventually became. We understand each other from half a word, and we don't need much meeting. So I spare them all the meetings time, and they are ready to perform on the spot. So it's new messages. I will read them, and after that I want to move on, because give feedback real time or as a written submission. Both. It can be if they're talking, because we do it both face to face and online. It goes as a homework as well. And this semester I experimented. Well, yes. That was actually, Georgina, congratulations. That was the very first time when peer feedback was a marked assessment. And what I did not mention, but it matters in my particular context, because I teach organizational communication, that is actually a very important skill for the leader to be able to provide feedback. So to me, it's a very, very serious assessment. And from now on, it becomes an assessment that not necessarily can happen in physics, for example. So I would love to, I see from Saida, take students as partners approach, and yeah, people were warning, also encourage them to lead discussions, and they come in from different perspectives, but together arrive at the right answer. Yes, yes, and sometimes this answer will blow them away, you away entirely. Saida, would you want to unmute yourself and share your experience on that? That's collaborative presentation. What's your most favorite moment?
My favourite moment is when the penny drops and the person who is the quietest in the group, all of a sudden they're the ones that are leading the discussions and explaining the concepts. And this year especially, that was what I saw. And that the same person who came to me in October who said, I can't do this, near the end was the one that was breaking all the concepts down. She still has to work on trying to bring them together, but individually, she was the one that was explaining them. And then the one, it was international students, but the fact, I think because I take more of a backseat role and I let them lead, it's that way where their verbal skills improved and their confidence grew. And this was quite obvious because at their presentations, they came up with quite good grades. So I know perhaps my focus was never their written work, but they got the concepts and they had the confidence to speak.
Yeah,
I have to say, it's when you said that it brings a tear to their eyes. It does, actually, it gives you this massive, it's just hugely satisfying and just really great to see when they come together. And yeah, it was, I can't explain it. It's just a really great feeling.
Yeah, but look, you can explain it because I'm feeling it on my skin right now.
It's just
exactly what you're talking about.
It's motivating.
I know exactly what you're
hugely
talking
motivating, about. Massively motivating.
Yeah.
And yeah, the more they discuss, the more of a backseat I take. And the only time that I've ever spoken is when I see they're going off track. But these are like support tutorials. And that's the only time I've ever spoken is when I see they're going off track, but otherwise they teach each other. And I realize that, I suppose, in a sense as well, I have a social constructivism approach. So I let them do that. We have a Teams channel where I let them actually answer each other's questions. And we have a WhatsApp group. They talk to each other there and they'll ask me the question, but it's not that I'm ignoring them, but I know they know the answer. And if one doesn't get it, the other one will.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. You know, one little trick that, well, it's not a trick because that's a strategy, very strategic strategy that I use at the very beginning of the semester when you're setting up the rule of the classroom. So Georgina experienced it the most recently, so she can confirm or deny what I'm talking about. When students work in little groups, and there's always, once again, one who is the most vocal one, who always raises his hand and speaks up. So once again, you work with him or her as a leader, current leader, and you are saying that you just discussed something that was interesting. And you say, so in my group, there was Michael, Hannah, Georgina, and Georgina just said something that really resonated with you. So say it. You take the leadership role here and say, in our discussion, the point that Georgina made really resonated with me. Georgina, would you like to speak up to say what you just said to us in the small group, or do you want me to do that? And they empower introverts. And at the same time, if they are fighting for their participation marks that they often do, they still highlight that they know the answer. They are the leader. They show themselves as a leader, but they are lifting up someone else, especially with international students. And that just, to me, from my perspective, that works beautifully. Georgina, what did you notice in the class? Your most recent experience, did you notice that?
Yes, and it worked really well. There was almost like a way of adding value to everyone and everything. And in terms of our sort of active listening that you spoke about, that was I guess another way we were able to use that skill you showed us how to use, and actually use that as a tool and then go forward. So yes, you did that and it worked very well.
Yeah, it does work very, very well. Okay, so let us move to our reflections. This is us, and so you can see my screen, okay, right? The presentation, and Georgina, and yeah, you can see beautiful Hannah as a recent graduate, and you can see Michael, who also shared his perspectives with us, and we will return back to them again. So what I would like you to do right now, let us have a structured reflection on our experience. And the way to do it is to analyze. First of all, we start with benefits. Potential benefits to you, to your teaching, if you use students as partners approach in teaching. So please type your responses, like literally a couple of minutes, 1.5 minutes. I'll be strict so that we finish on time. Yeah, I always get this response. Students are engaged. More feedback for students, yes. Increased engagement, yes. Yes, improving student confidence as well as your own. That is true. So true, I can't even tell you. Because when you see that that works, that empowers you as well. You learn as well. You become more confident in your skills as a teacher. So many of us are simply afraid to turn our back and to write on the whiteboard, because we do not know what will happen in the classroom. And that brings you, that returns actually power back into your hands. Sharing power. There's a beautiful book. I can't, the surname of the author starts with B, but the name escapes me. The Power of Giving Away Power. It was published recently, I think 2022. Potentially deeper learning through better comprehension. Absolutely true. As soon as students are intrinsically motivated, they understand that they are responsible for their own learning, they start dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And when they share their insights, you'll be blown away with the results. And as both, well, all three of my partners today, they experienced that. I did start with the flipped classroom approach, and now it turned into student-run classes, entirely student-run classes in the second part of the semester. So the teacher comes, says hello, and after that makes themselves invisible, pretty much. Sits there in the corner and marks and takes notes. Georgina, what was the experience of that? Was that fun? You had a very, that was a short period of time to develop something as student partner and to try to teach other students.
I think we really enjoyed the freedom, and it was all part of the learning journey. So no, it was very positive. I think you are a very good facilitator. So, and we always saw you nearby, but you sort of let us get on with it. But we also knew you were there to support us if we needed. So we had the reassurance that we weren't alone.
Yeah, well, with all the freedom, it's very much structured. In the normal semester, each topic aligns with the theme for the week. And this is how we proceed. So the next question. Okay, now we discussed benefits. What are challenges if you use students as partners approach in teaching? What are the challenges? Michael, you also think about that. You will speak up about that, okay? Resilient students and other staff members. Maybe there's a typo here. Maybe that's resistance, not resilience. It's so difficult to type on the small screen. It's just like, oh my God. I always have to ask Michael to do this kind of stuff. I had to ask him to work with the video today because I totally lost control of it, and technology decided to fail me entirely. Okay, resistant. Engaging large cohorts at once. My biggest cohorts that I'm teaching is up to 1,000. My biggest one was 960 something. I can't remember the number. So that works. That works in small classes, but you need good partners. Once again, time-poor students, part-time, mature. Yeah, my students, they work full-time, right, Georgina? As you learned accidentally for yourself. Tamir, domestic student, works full-time. SAP is fully online and in fully online environments. Hannah, would you like to speak to that? Student as partners approach in fully online environments. Tell us more. She started totally online. She landed in Sydney relatively recently, and we met much later after she finished the unit of study. Do you want to speak to that, Hannah?
Yeah, and organizational communication work 3205. I think that was the course we took online. Actually, I have to be so grateful to Maria and Michael for this course, because I told them, like, when I came to Sydney, I had no friends. And then all my friends came from that class. And I really do think it's because the students as partners approach made us feel like we were all in the same boat. Right? If there's a concept we don't understand, if we have to stand up and take leadership, take initiative of something, we're all in this together. So I think class spirit is huge, especially sometimes it may be harder for teachers and students to relate. And I know this because, coming from an Asian country, there's usually this power distance where like teachers are seen as someone who just holds your hand along the way. So a lot of students never feel encouraged or that confident to speak up, whereas this was a completely different environment. And so when I came here, I had all these friends from this class that I kept in touch with because we were together for group projects, but then outside of group projects, we would ask for each other's contact details and be like, oh, should we prepare for the exam together? And it was quite unusual because it was like an online setting. So we would share notes online or hop in Zoom meetings and just do everything online. So I think the students as partners approach made us feel like we were equal. And so the class spirit was built, and then our bond was just kept really strong. And so, yeah, I think this was like perfect, not only just for learning, but learning like class theory and then learning how to navigate friendships. And it was just a very solid approach.
Yeah, I loved it how your online, previously online friends helped you to move your house when you were here in Sydney.
Yeah.
Would you like to address lots of different teaching styles in a team of teaching? I agree with that one. All of those are potential challenges that you will experience. And this one, as a teacher, you need to change on the stage. Yeah, that's a big one to facilitate and coach, Michael.
Oh, sure thing. So adding in some insight there. Something that I have to say is that I'm very blessed to have a wonderful team with you, Maria, Hannah, and also thank you very much, Georgina, for joining us tonight as well too. I guess like something like that is a potential challenge for any tutors who want to engage in this process is being all right with taking a risk and being all right with if things don't work out too great, it's all right, because since your students are being as partners, they're also stepping up and taking responsibility for the learning and the way that the session actually unfolds. So mainly it's just, in a sense, being all right with just taking that risk, and it takes some practice. So just taking those small baby steps to kind of allow students to step up, and also allowing your team to navigate the flexibility that's involved in having students as partners. That's one of those challenges, and just communicating it, even at the point in time when you're running the class and you realize, oh, okay, so some students want to engage a certain topic in a certain way. you provide them that trust that they will share their ideas, their experiences, and also encourage others who are a bit more quieter to stand up, talk, and also share their voices. So that's one of the major challenges. One of those other challenges, which I find very interesting, is some students actually take the ownership of their learning extremely strong. So we'll have like very strong dominant voices coming in and trying to champion, I guess, that class or a certain presentation or topic. But then it's also kind of just recognizing, all right, this is very similar to a actual work environment when there are competing interests, and some people are very much motivated. Some people do want to take a bit of a backhand, but then realizing that it's teamwork. You have friendships, you have those relationships that are developing. So just allowing, I guess, chaos to finally like come together. So that's just one of those challenges, but it's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding and it's very fulfilling when seeing those light bulb moments happen. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There was, while you are answering the next question, I will answer one of the questions that I also see in the chat. So potential benefits if you keep the status quo, if you do not change anything, if you work in the paradigm that you currently work. And I will answer the question, how did I introduce students to did I frame it to them? Yes, I did. And what's interesting, because I ask for feedback all the time and along the journey, I do not rely only when I receive it in evaluation forms, but I ask it throughout the semester, and I frame it to students that evaluation forms, you already do not benefit from that when you're giving this kind of feedback to me. But when you're giving it to me in the middle of the semester, I still can change something. And they said, yes, it needs to be introduced, and up to the size of the whole first lecture. You work in this approach, and when you are doing the icebreakers, that's how you're framing it, but that's how you're introducing it and bringing it to the classroom. The most interesting thing about that is that even though you are introducing it, it will get set up as a culture subconsciously, but on a conscious level, everyone will forget about that. And if at the end of the semester, you will be asking about students as partners, some of them who totally bought in and who totally acted in the right way, they are like, huh? What are we talking about? I found it fascinating. I was blown away the first time that I experienced that, but I noticed that that's indeed the thing. But most importantly, it's the culture. You don't have to be able to define the water, right? The most common metaphor to the culture, the water. You don't have to be able to analyze the water and chemicals in the water to be able to swim in it and to develop your swimming skills. Okay, so last question here, last reflection here, potential losses if you keep the status quo. What do you lose if you keep the status quo? And that's the last question. Michael, there are some questions in chat. For example, the best strategy to encourage students to unmute and share their video. You are so great with that. Maybe you will type the answer. We have 2 minutes left. So probably difficult to say it out loud. And if Georgina and Hannah have something to say, that's you have student experience, what's the best strategy to encourage students to put their video on? My take on that, I do care, I do admire that and respect that and encourage that, but I do not insist. I do not push for videos to be on because one of the students during COVID said, I gained on so much weight, I feel uncomfortable on camera. I do not want to be on camera. This particular student was very engaged, but always was as a black screen. I'm okay with that. I do not see it as a sign of disrespect. So yeah, potential losses, joy, and lack of growth. And you are also missing the opportunity of staying in touch with your wonderful, phenomenally wonderful students. As you can see, students who graduated in recent years and different years are here together with me, and also being passionate about that. Well, yeah, I think we can finish 1 minute earlier. And I think I was supposed to have, yes, I have a QR code for my LinkedIn, should you wish to connect. And my email is on the screen as well. Very happy to answer any questions anytime.